Hello, I am Baron-Quipity, and welcome to Baron-Quipity, a podcast of quips and tips from a hip librarian gamer. Let's get right to it. Welcome to episode 6 of Baron-Quipity. So, you want to make a Brawlhalla fan legend, eh? Or perhaps you'd prefer the term OC for original character. Surely there's some character in your mind or elsewhere that you'd love to see as a Brawlhalla legend. Regardless, in this episode, I'm going to share all the information you could ever need regarding how Brawlhalla characters are officially made, and how you can use that information to make awesome Brawlhalla fan legends yourself. Now, a disclaimer. Your legend won't be in the game. It just won't happen. It doesn't matter how amazing your concept is or how much other Brawlhalla fans love it, Blue Mammoth Games won't directly use your legend or your concept or anything in the actual game. One of the primary reasons for this is if they did, there would be legal issues. It wouldn't really be their own original creation because it would be your intellectual property that they would profit from if they did use your concept. The copyright laws in the United States, like everywhere else, are meant to protect people's intellectual property. This would require a lot of work, especially for BMG's lawyers. They want to avoid this kind of copyright issue, as do you. Trust me, as amazing as it would be, as far as I've been able to tell from my research and from my understanding of the subject, it's just not worth the trouble. Don't let that deter you, though. Making fan legends is a lot of fun all on its own. I just wanted to make sure that was very clear before moving on. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea that if you make a Brawlhalla fan legend, that BMG will consider it for the game. I haven't really seen that happen, ever. And I don't see that happening in the future. So, anyway. Your legend won't be in the game, but have fun creating it nonetheless. I should also mention that I don't work for Blue Mammoth Games, for BMG. I know that's probably obvious to many of you, but you'd be surprised how many people continue to get in touch with me with the seeming assumption that I have some sway over how BMG does things. I don't. I'm just sharing information that is generally and publicly available to everyone curious enough about the subject, though I did get direct clarification from a couple of the devs themselves for fact-checking purposes. Alright, now that I have all those disclaimers out of the way, I also want to set up some expectations about how I'm covering this topic. When I say make your own legend, I'm talking about creating a concept for a new playable legend in Brawlhalla. This can include characters from other series and fandoms if you'd like. I will also go over the process of creating the initial concept, focusing that concept, and finalizing the details. Since I'm not an artist, I won't have much say about the particulars of how to draw in the Brawlhalla style. I also don't have a lot to say about, figuring out the mechanics of signatures or frame data or hitboxes or things like that. I suggest you consult with other artists or even artists from BMG or, programmers, people more familiar with sort of the mechanics and hitboxes and stuff. About those sorts of things. I also can't really tell you how to mod the game to actually put your designs in the game files. Contact someone who's interested in modding, or contact a modder if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, now let's begin. So first, I'm going to explain how BMG creates their legends as far as I am able to figure out. I learned about this process through listening to dev streams as well as contacting a dev directly for clarification, so I feel very confident about the general accuracy of this information. So, step number 1. Figure out weapon pairing or archetype or both. There are many factors that go into this. Sometimes they look at the weapons that haven't had a new legend in a while. Sometimes they have a cool concept or archetype in mind and choose a pair of weapons that would fit that the best. Now, when I say archetype, I mean something like Viking, Elf Ranger, Cyberpunk, Gargoyle, Rage Fighter, Skeleton, etc. A word or short phrase that describes the concept in general. Sometimes a legend's initial concept is a bit of both weapons and archetype. Basically, they start with the fundamentals and go from there. I think it's also good to note that you should keep this in mind when I see a lot of people trying to predict what the next Legend's weapons will be. And I do that sometimes too. Just keep in mind that there's no real way to tell unless you actually work for Blue Mammoth Games. You probably have no idea what they're going to be doing next. It's just like, oh, we should have a legend, another cannon legend or whatever. Okay, what's a weapon we don't have with cannon yet? Gauntlets, sure. What would work with cannon or gauntlets? What if we had a gargoyle, right? And so you have onyx. Or maybe they had the concept of gargoyle first and thought, okay, what weapons would a gargoyle have? I guess gauntlets and punching stuff. Ooh, cannon would be cool for gargoyle as well. So it could be either or. Anyway, that's the first step. Figure out a weapon pairing or archetype or both. That's the initial concept. Step number 2, have the artists go nuts. Once the weapons and the basic archetype are chosen, BMG artists draw whatever they want based on that, sketching any crazy idea that comes to them. No need to worry about the particulars just yet. That comes in the next few steps. For now, it's all about creating without editing, making things and throwing them against the metaphorical wall to see what sticks. Step 3. Have the art lead focus the idea with lore feedback from Matt Woomer. So as the artists are working, the art lead, basically the one who leads or manages a team of artists, helps to focus the chaotic creativity into a single direction. They also get lore feedback from Matt Woomer, the managing director of BMG. Is that right? Let me double check that. I actually need to fact check this. What is Matt Woomer's actual title? That's it, yeah. So Matt Woomer is the managing director at Blue Mammoth Games. He is also the art lead gets lore feedback. So the art lead, he or she gets lore feedback from Matt Woomer, the managing director of Blue Mammoth Games, because not only is Matt Woomer the managing director, he's also the lore guy. He's the guy who basically creates the lore, the whole Brawlhalla universe lives in his head, and making these decisions after doing a bunch of creating is how vague concepts become more concrete. Also, like I said, Matt Woomer being the main lore guy in BMG, his ideas can help inform the design. For example, Scarlet is an inventor, as well as an intelligent lady of from Britain. This likely led to the current default design in which she wears a nice dress, as well as a pair of goggles on her head. I'm aware that Scarlet went through several different iterations between, sort of like an adventurous explorer or a fashionable British lady. It seems they kind of went for a bit of both as well. So, as the artists are kind of having fun with, the initial concept, then, the art lead sort of says, okay, I like that, maybe not that. Maybe we should go for a bit of that with a bit of that kind of thing. Step 4, develop and finalize design and signatures. So this is very likely the longest step, in which artists and designers take direction from their managers and make many different versions of the legend idea, their design, and their signature attacks. With each round of creation and critique, things get more specific down to the very color and shape of jacket buttons, for example. The different versions of the legend get more and more similar to each other until they settle on the final design we see in the game. It is a process of iteration and feedback that repeats until it gets so focused that the legend is all but ready to be released. So the artists sketch a few things. Their managers kind of look at it and say, okay, maybe let's try a couple things with taking these elements. So the artists make more sketches and more drawings and say, okay, how about this? And it gets more and more focused as like I said, a round of creation, critique, and they focus and finalize the design. I don't know how long it takes, but this is very likely the longest step in the process. Same thing with the signatures as well. A lot of iteration, a lot of critique, and a lot of reiteration, a lot of recritique. Step 5, discuss and write the lore as the characters finalize. So Matt Woomer, as I said, the main lore guy at BMG, he does talk with other devs in a quote-unquote lore team, basically. I don't know who gets chosen to be the lore team. I think it might be just basically interest. Ooh, I like lore, pick me. And Matt Woomer or someone else is like, yeah, sure, come to our meeting, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how they do it exactly. By the way, I would love to be on the lore team. That would be awesome. But I also know that's not a specific that's not a specific job that anyone really has. People at Blue Mammoth Games wear a lot of hats, so there could be some artists. There could be some some of the people who work the stream or whatever. Some of the programmers could be on the lore team. I don't know. But anyway, this lore team, like Matt Woomer and the other lore experts in BMG, they look at the existing lore and they consider where the legend might fit in the Brawlhalla universe. Sometimes they even use names that were mentioned earlier, which is what happened to Fate and to Volkov. I should also point out Mordex as well. Mordex is another one where Octavius was mentioned in Diana's lore, and they decided to use that for Mordex, Octavius Mordex. I should also point out that storylines in the lore are kept open and vague on purpose to leave lots of space for future legends and ideas. As much as lore nerds and lore masters like me would love to have all the questions answered, it's honestly best if some things are kept vague as is. This allows for the gaps to be filled in later when a really cool idea comes along. The step number 6, the final step, release the Kraken. Release the legend. Along with the finalized default design, skins are usually taken from scrapped concepts. So, slight correction here. Skins are not usually taken from scrapped concepts. They're only sometimes taken from scrapped concepts. I got that correction from Brawlhalla himself. So, there you go. Not usually, just sometimes. Jala was going to be an orc barbarian at one point, and so I think that led to the orc raider Jala skin. I'm guessing they were considering having Fate be more of a cat lady witch, which didn't end up happening, but you have the feline Fate skin for that. Or skins could also just be silly ideas and references. Lil Yumiko is, it's basically the cute, kawaii anime Yumiko. Kill Thrill Hattori, an obvious reference to the Kill Bill movies, because the Kill Bill movies take aspects of Japanese martial arts, I believe. So that is basically Blue Mammoth Games' process. They start with the initial concept, weapon pairing or archetype. They have the artist go kind of crazy, and maybe the same thing for the signature designers and stuff. Then they they kind of like focus the ideas, and they keep focusing and critiquing it until they finally and then the lore gets written as well during this process, and then finally they're ready to release the legend. So with all this in mind, I'm going to recommend a slightly different set of steps for you to take to make a quality Brawlhalla fan legend. So step 1, start with either a weapon pairing, an archetype, or a general concept. Choose one of these and figure out the other two first. So if you have a weapon pairing in mind, start with that. If you have an archetype in mind, or just like a general concept, a bit of both, start with one of those and figure out the other two first. So if you have a weapon pairing in mind, think of what kind of character or archetype or whatever would use those weapons. If you have an archetype in mind, think of what weapons they would use. Number 2, do some research on the archetype. I'm guessing Blue Mammoth Games. I'm pretty sure Blue Mammoth Games does their research when they do design and stuff for lore or whatever. You'd be amazed how many things in the lore are not there by accident. For example, did you know that Batavia was a real place, or that Azoth is a real alchemical term, or even that the name of Kaya's father, Kiviuk, is the name of an actual Inuit legend? Even a little bit of research can go a long way, not just for the lore either, also for the design as well. I'm sure for Kaya, for example, they certainly did a lot of research into the Inuit people, maybe like the sort of like the art style and cultures of the what some people might say Eskimo, but I don't think the Inuit people use I don't know if they like that term. I don't think they use that term at all. But anyway, the Inuit people, especially up in northern Canada, certainly those designs helped inspire the way some of Kaya's SIGs look, like the way Kaya's like the little ice owl in Kaya's neutral SIG for bow, I believe. But yeah, doing some research on your archetype or your concept can certainly help with designing the legend as well as writing the lore and stuff. Step number 3: go nuts with your designs and lore or whatever you want to do. Just have fun with it. Step 4, also in step 3, do not worry about how good it is. Just do it. Step 4, start focusing your concept. After you get your ideas on paper or on a screen or whatever, then you sort of like think, okay, how can I make this better? How can I make this fit more of what the concept I have in mind? Step number 5, finish your design as well as the lore and the signatures if you have those. Step 6, share your creation if you wish. You're pretty much done. So it's very similar to how Blue Mammoth Games does it, but I'm guessing you probably aren't part of like a team of developers. So this is all kind of just you doing, kind of doing a bit of everything, doing the research, doing the design, and things like that. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to share an example. I myself have created a fan legend. I actually created 2 fan legends. But one of them I'll talk about in a later episode of Baron-Quipity. But I created one legend, every single aspect of a legend. But yeah, so I know that when people create a fan legend, some people only have a design, and that's fine. For example, Tataya Furkeem, her Simon character, as far as I know, only has like just a character design and some skins, some concept skins. Other people have everything: design, lore, signatures, skins, everything. By way of demonstration, I'm going to share with you what I've made for my own fan legend, a canon orb legend named Baron. If you're looking at the video, you should see images of my drawings on Baron's weapons, signatures, skins, and so forth, as well as his lore. I've shared all of this before in a tweet, so I'll provide a link to that tweet in the description below. But I'd like to kind of go over all of each of these aspects and kind of explain my thought process for it. Maybe that will help you and kind of thinking about what you want to do for your own fan legend. So I'm going to start with the signatures. You may see one of the images has like a book that said, like a picture of a book that says the word lore on it. Like you see a front and back of a book that says lore on it. That's the page where that's the page where I have default weapon skins as well as signatures. And so I really love the idea of a book orb. That's what you have in the Headmaster Fate skin. So for back to school skin. So I just kind of went with that. But just kind of thinking, what if the default orb was a book, just like a floating book? So you can kind of see, I don't know how well you can see this. Hopefully the tweet in the tweet link, you can see it better. But like for the neutral sig, I just kind of thought, I don't know, like usually neutral signatures are like in the kind of like an anti-air sort of thing, like kind of up and ahead and up and ahead of the character a little bit. So I just have the book floating and just like exploding with knowledge energy or something. That's probably not the most inspired sig I made. But in any case, the side sig for the orb, I'm pretty proud of. So basically I have something where like the character, Baron, would take the book and like kind of like shut the book close to the enemy's face, and a dust cloud would sort of like puff out from the book, and then Baron would give it like 1-2 kind of thing, like so like 1-2, that kind of thing. I really like that. The idea of a librarian pugilist is hilarious to me. And then for the down sig, I decided it'd be fun to have the book drop and open and grow in size, and enlarge, and then the enemy would be trapped in the book, and the book would shut essentially. So yeah, the opponent would be trapped. The opponent would be trapped inside, and then then they'd be like spit out of the book essentially. It kind of like actually you'd be spit out of the book with a cardinal direction. So like Fate's orb down sig, it's pretty much like that, where she traps somebody in some sort of like pink magic ribbon, and then she sends them flying forward or up or something. So I had the same idea there, although I think it'd be fun to have a down direction for that. Anyway, for canon, I've had people say, Baron, why'd you give yourself orb and cannon? Like, wouldn't orb sword, like orb is perfect, but wouldn't sword be better for someone fancy like you or whatever? And I like the idea of being orb sword, but I'm choosing orb cannon because the word cannon with two ends refers to the weapon, like, a big blast cannonball kind of thing. But the word cannon with one end, Canon, refers to a collection of texts, all right? Like what is canon to the lore? What is canon to Brawlhalla lore? So using that little pun, I could not resist the wordplay there. But anyway, I couldn't, it was hard to come up with something for like a book canon. So I just made that. I made a canon made out of books. For the neutral sig, but I do like this idea though. I'm pretty proud of this. For the canon neutral sig, I have Baron just tossing the pile of books up, and the book cannon falls apart to individual books, and then it just kind of like drops on top of the person, and then Baron picks up the books, and they magically go back into cannon shape, cannon formation. So that's the neutral sig. For the down sig, Baron takes the cannon, the book cannon thing, and kind of like sets it up like a pile of books, and then he kind of like takes a step back so that the enemy is between Baron and the stack of books, and then Baron just kind of like looks at his nails or whatever as the books drop onto the enemy. And then finally for the side sig, I kind of have something a bit like Zol's cannon side sig, where except in this case, the cannon is being held, and then the book in the front is sent out at the enemy, kind of like latches itself on the enemy, brings them back to the cannon, and then explodes them out, essentially. So those were my thoughts for the orb and cannon signatures for Baron, and I had a lot of fun sort of sketching those. Now I'm going to go so the other page has a lot of different things. Baron's default skin, well, I'll talk about skins in a little bit. I want to mention the idle animation first. So his idle animation is kind of like my Twitter profile picture, where he has a hand behind his back and he's reading a book with a sort of knowing smile on his face. So that's his idle, and of course he's like, you got the breathing sort of idle animation going on. But then when you lock in the character, I imagine as the announcer says Baron or something like that, Baron closes the book, kind of like looks up, closes the book, and then puts the book behind him as he takes his other arm and puts it on the lapel of his jacket and looks in the other direction with a kind of look of determination on his face. Like, yeah, I'm ready to fight, basically. So, Baron! Just kind of that quick thing. But yeah, there you go. His default skin is, Baron, Man of Lore. This is the art that Akiko-sama made for me, which I'm still incredibly impressed with. Well done. The default orb is called Printed Wiki. So basically like my lore wiki, but printed in a book. And then the cannon is called Official Cannon with one N in the middle of cannon. For the skins, I had a lot of fun with these ones. So default skin is like the William Waldegrave look, right? Like the what you see from the William Waldegrave portrait. For more information about William Waldegrave, check out Baron-Quipity episode 5. But anyway, the first skin I made was Librarian Baron, or Librarian. I don't know. I had a hard time coming over the pun in there. But each skin has a little quote kind of thing, right? So for Librarian Baron, I have time to check out the competition. So you can see I drew Baron with with half moon spectacles, kind of stereotypical librarian. I don't wear. This is probably something I would wear if I was feeling especially dressy, but I don't wear this on a regular basis. But like an Argyle sweater vest, kind of like a tie with maybe like slacks or khakis or something, and then a fancy book. The book orb is called Academic Research, or actually another name for this book orb would be Checked Out. Which is like a pun on being checked or punched or whatever. And then the cannon is a literal bookshelf with books in them, and I call it the stacks because That's the librarian term for the bookshelves. We don't usually we try not to use librarian jargon when patrons come up to us, but among librarians we call the bookshelves the stacks. I don't know exactly why, just like the stacks of books or whatever. But yeah, that's what it is. Um, it kind of sounds a little bit like stocks, I guess. Anyway, the next one, the skin in the middle, this one is just especially hilarious to me. Lore Quiz Baron. This is in recognition of the lore quizzes I do every Thursday and Friday. Um, the quote is, "Thanks for playing. Better luck next week." Wink, wink emoticon. So this is a lot more what I would wear on a regular basis. So you have, I imagine he would probably have like more like brown hair instead of gray hair. Has more of a sort of like smirk on his face or smile, like wider grin. He has like a polo shirt, maybe like a red polo shirt or blue one or something with jeans. And the orb is a literal CC community colors icon. I just think that's perfect. And then the cannon is called Code Generator. Now, I don't generate the codes. The developers do, and they give the codes to me. But I keep the codes on a spreadsheet. And so this cannon is basically like a folded up spreadsheet where I would keep the CC codes. And if you look closely, I have a code on there, B4R0ND1P1705. Which is not an actual CC code, unfortunately. That's just Barondipitous in CC code form. And then finally, we have Golden Baron, gold level player, diamond level lore master. That's really the only reason I made this skin. That's just the only other thing I came up with for this. I was going to have the ranked gold helmet as the orb, which that's why you see like a smear there. I thought he was going to hold that, and then I thought, wait a minute, no, he should wear that helmet, right? So I have that. I have it kind of like as a paper cutout with string behind him. Maybe that's too tacky. Maybe it should be an actual helmet. But it's essentially normal Barondipitous, but he's all gold colored, essentially. Maybe even his skin, I'm not sure. Or maybe just his hair and his suit and whatever. Anyway, the book, I call it, the orb book is called the Golden Codex. It's basically imagine a book, but the pages are made of literal gold, and then it's kind of like 3 big golden rings around it. The reason why I chose this, I was considering, like I said, I was considering the golden helmet, but I chose Golden Codex because it's a gold book, and most of the other orb skins I have for Baron is book, but also it is a nod to my religious and spiritual beliefs. Actually, I am a Latter-day Saint. Many people recognize the term Mormon. We don't use that term anymore, so that's why I say Latter-day Saint. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But along with the Bible, we believe in the Book of Mormon, and we believe that the Book of Mormon is an ancient American record that was buried in the ground by a prophet named an ancient American record that was compiled by someone named Mormon, hence the name, and it was buried in the ground in America to be discovered later by Joseph Smith, who by the power of God translated the Book of Mormon into English, which is why we have it. So anyway, that is essentially what the original ancient American record looked like. It was a metal codex with rings that bind it. Whether you believe that or not, that is up to you. I'm certainly not telling you what to believe, but I do believe that is true. I do believe that the Book of Mormon is a book of scripture from the ancient Americas, from ancient American people who believed in Jesus Christ. I believe it is the Word of God, just like I believe the Bible to be the Word of God as far as it is translated correctly. But anyway, that's why I have that Golden Codex there. It's just kind of like a little nod to that. And then finally, the canon, I call it Aurelian Banner. Aurelian is another term for golden, and it's basically just the banner that you see when you gain or lose elo or whatever. It's just that banner rolled up into a cannon. That's pretty much it. It's just showing that I'm still a gold level player, diamond level lore master, basically. Maybe a diamond should be inserted somewhere in there. I don't know. But yeah, As for the lore, you're free to read that if you wish. I am going to go into more detail of that lore in episode 7 of Baron-Quipity, so I won't read it this time. But that's my thought process behind every aspect of that. I just had a lot of fun with it. I don't expect Blue Mammoth Games to put it in the game. I just wanted to do it. I just thought it'd be a lot of fun to just sort of imagine what if Baron-Quipity was in Brawlhalla, just for funsies, right? There are so many other examples of excellent fan legends out there. Excellent designs, excellent lore, excellent, just excellent ideas overall. I'll mention there are too many for me to name here. I'll mention just a few that I've come across. I mentioned Tataya Furkeem's Simon. I think that's a really, really cool design. A Knight's Gambit made a Reaper character named Null. Puds made a couple of characters inspired by him and his wife. It's just really adorable that he kind of put himself and his wife in, he also made pixel art for each of these legends as well, and lore for each of these legends. Aster made I believe Aster made a Sun Valkyrie as well as a painter. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Really cool ideas. But yeah, just there are too many for me to name out there. I've just seen so many that look really good, and I always love to see people's creativity with making Brawlhalla fan legends. So, yeah. That concludes this episode of Baron-Quipity. Thank you very much for listening. I should mention before concluding that I will be talking about I will be talking in depth about how to write Brawlhalla lore in episode 7 of Baron-Quipity, which I will upload to the day after this one comes out. So stay tuned for that. In any case, thank you very much for listening, and until next time, my friends, make it a great day. All the best.